Hello everyone. Welcome to the 10th week of this tutorial session on robotics basics and selected advanced concepts. My name is Soumya and I am a PhD student associated with IIT Gandhinagar. So it has been 10 weeks till now and we have learned a lot of things. So if you remember last time we did somewhat or we touched upon linear control. Okay, so we initially started with motion planning, the way we find out the trajectory, the way there are trajectories that are being fit to plan the trajectory or the motion. Okay, then we did this for single link robot. Then we also did it for multi-link serial manipulator, right? So it was like we started with kinematics, moved to dynamics, and then we did some sort of control because control is mandatory if you have a robot. If you wanted to track some trajectory, if you want the joints to behave in the way you want, so you need to have a controller so that the desired values of the variables are being met. All right. So since we have done this motion planning and linear control, just a second. Oh, okay. So as we have already done this linear control, today we'll deal with some non-linear control. Why do we even need non-linear control? Why does linear control not work always? We saw PID controller, right? So we'll see how do we control a multi-link manipulator, and then how do we control a constrained and parallel manipulator. Okay, then we'll come to force control. Okay, so initially we will just talk about position control, later we'll talk about force control, and then we'll see what is hybrid position force control of manipulators. And after that we'll have some advanced topics which basically covers different non-linear controllers that can be designed for non-linear systems, right? So we'll be covering all of these. Then the session would start with a brief recap and then we'll see a couple of questions. Okay, so all that was covered in this lecture actually began with non-linear control and computer torque method, right? Computer torque control. And then there were some simulations and some practical insights. Then it was mostly based on constraint and parallel manipulators, and then the different non-linear controllers after force and hybrid control, right? So today we are going to study non-linear control of robot manipulators, which is fundamentally different from classical control because robot dynamics are inherently non-linear. Okay, so let's start today. Yes, just a brief recap. So why do we need non-linear control? Okay, so so why do we even need non-linear control is the question. So the very fundamental reason is robot manipulators are multi-link systems, right? Their dynamics include different things. And what do they include? It includes the coupling between the joints. It also includes non-linear terms. which can be, if you have seen the lecture, you would know it is Coriolis, centripetal, right? And also gravity. So, linear control, which we read, in our case it was just PID. So, linear control PID is not sufficient everywhere in the space. Okay. So, what is general robot dynamics that you have read? It is given by mqqq double dot plus c, which is a function of q and q dot, plus gravity term plus fq comma q dot. Okay. So here, what does this mean? This means that what is T here? T is the joint torque vector. Okay. This MQ is the mass or inertia matrix, and it is configuration dependent, right? The C matrix is Coriolis plus centripetal effects are there in this. Okay. This G is a gravity vector, and this FQ is if there are some other forces acting, like contact force or friction force. Okay, so this is an example of non-linear coupled system. Okay, then we saw control law partitioning. Right. So we basically split control into two parts. Let's say our torque is represented as some alpha times tau dash plus beta. Okay. So what do we choose? We choose alpha to be equal to mq and beta to be equal to c, which is a function of q and q dot, plus gq plus f q comma q comma q dot. Okay. If we substitute this into dynamics, what would happen? Your let's start with what we already have and how are we. So in the left hand side we already have mqqq dot plus c plus g plus f, right? And all of this was equivalent to 0. Now in sorry, not 0, it was equivalent to torque. Now this torque can be replaced by mq tau dash, right, from here, plus c plus g plus f. Okay, so from here you see that these terms cancel out, this also cancels out, and what do you get? You get q double dot is equal to tau dash. Okay, so you have converted non-linear system into this form, a unit mass system. It is just a double integrator. Okay, so this is called, or from here we start, computed torque control. Okay, now we can have many other controllers, so let's design controller now. Okay, so first we'll define the error. How would the error be defined? It would be the difference between the desired trajectory and the current trajectory. So it would be QD minus Q, where QD is desired. Okay. We'll choose tau dash to be equal to QD double dot plus KV into error dot plus KP into error. Right. Once we have this, we substitute Q double dot is equal to tau dot. When we substitute, Q dot is equal to QD double dot plus KV into E dot plus KP into. Okay. So let's derive the error equation. Okay. Our error is equal to QD minus Q. Okay. Let's differentiate it. Just a second. Just a second. Just a second. Okay. So from here, we'll differentiate it. Okay. So it would be E dot is equal to QD dot minus Q dot. So E double dot is QD double dot minus Q double dot. Let's substitute. So from here, E double dot is QD double dot plus, minus, what it would be? It would be Q dot. Q dot, how will write? Right, write QD double dot plus KV into E dot plus KP into. Okay. From here, E double dot plus KV into E dot plus KP into E is equal to 0. This is an example of linear second order system, right? So you can choose the gains like KV is equal to 2 under root KP for critical damping. You can check this condition is there for critical damping. So we have transformed a non-linear robot equation, which we had written here. This was a non-linear robot equation. We have transformed it into linear equation in error space. Right here. This is a linear equation in error space. Okay. So if we want to control a robot, can we achieve the ideal control? Is the ideal control achievable? Is it practically possible? So the model may not be exact. You might not have the correct matrices, MC, G, and friction model, etc. There may be computational delay. There may be some parametric uncertainty, right? So the actual error term may not be this, and it might look like this: plus KV E dot plus KPE is equal to some model mismatch terms. Right. Okay. Now, there are a few special cases that were discussed. If I talk about case 1, it was about gravity compensation. Okay, in this case, what do? We write torque is equal to gravity vector. If there is a PD control, what do? Torque is equal to Kp into E plus Kv into E dot. If there is feed forward control, so torque is equal to mqd into qd double dot plus cqd qd dot plus gqd. Right, this is an example of feed forward control. So feed forward is computed offline and there is no delay. Okay, now uh, okay. So after this, there were some simulation study which I'm not going to cover, but it was on two-link planar robot and it moves vertically. The observations were very clear, right? If we are going to use PD control, it works fine for slow motion, but it is too poor for fast motion because nonlinear terms increase with velocity and PD controller cannot compensate. Okay, then there was model based control which had much smaller errors and it had smooth torque. So it's clear that the nonlinear controllers outperform linear ones, especially at high speed there, right? Okay, now let's talk about constrained motion. Okay, so if there is a problem, that is robot must follow fxy is equal to 0 and let's say we take the example of surface contact. So you might have already seen that force and velocity cannot be, both of them cannot be controlled in the same direction. Okay, but we'll come later to that. So let's convert it to joint space. What do we get? F of theta 1 and theta 2 is equal to 0. Okay, let's do parametric representation. Here you'll have x is equal to f1 phi and y is equal to f2 phi. Then theta can be written as h of phi. Okay. Now if we talk about the velocity, I'm not deriving it completely, but theta dot is equal to dou h upon dou phi into phi dot. Okay. Then theta double dot is dou h upon dou phi into phi double dot plus dou square h into dou phi dot is into phi dot cos square. So from here, we'll talk about reduced dynamics and talk about the final form. It is m phi into phi double dot plus c. Let's take it in hat form. C plus g is equal to now jh transpose into tau. Okay. So the force, let's see what is the force along constraint. So your normal force is lambda into delta of f theta, and we had an important result that there is no work done. Okay. Now we can also talk about parallel manipulators and what happens there. In parallel manipulators, we have mq into q double dot plus cq dot plus gq is equal to this thing, right? Where lambda is the, it contains all the constraint forces, and this psi is the constraint Jacobian. So the key challenge here is passive joints are not measured and they need estimation. Okay, so that was the thing here. Okay, now let's talk about Cartesian control. Why it is needed? Because constraints are in Cartesian space and inverse kinematics is complex. So we write Cartesian dynamics. F is xq into x double dot plus cx plus gx. Okay. From here, if you have seen the lecture, you might have seen these terms coming in. I'm not going into the detailed derivation. What is important is control law. Okay. So what happens here? Your force is mx into f dash plus cx plus gz. So from here, f dash is xd double dot plus kv into e. Same similar thing that we derived before this, kp into e. So your final equation becomes again linear second order differential equation, kv into e dot plus kp into. So if you convert it to joint torque, your torque becomes J transpose F, right? This we have already seen. Now, okay. So in force control, I think the things are pretty much similar. If you take an example of mass spring damper system, and then you write the control law again in terms of alpha f dash plus beta, I think it is already covered and I'm not going into this. Here again you arrive at a very similar equation. It's the error, and from there we make some, if we try to control force and if we try to control position, we can, so one of the very important points is we cannot control force and position in same direction, right? Okay, for example, if there is a blackboard or whiteboard, whatever, if you are using a duster to wipe off the blackboard, you can apply a force in this direction normal to the board, but you cannot control the velocity in direction. Velocity is being controlled in this direction, right? So we already know that force is equal to mass into acceleration. If we define the force, we have kind of defined the acceleration and hence defined the velocity. So you cannot control both of them together in the same direction. Okay. So from here we see that robot dynamics are non-linear. Linear control is insufficient and computed torque cancels non-linearities. It gives linear error dynamics. Model inaccuracies also reduce the performance. And yeah, in Cartesian and force control, we already saw that. Okay. Now, we have to see there were some advanced topics in nonlinear control of manipulators. So far we've assumed that robot model is known accurately. But in reality, this assumption is almost never true. This leads us to advanced nonlinear control techniques. Okay. So, okay. So let's start here. So we already saw this, right? Torque is mq into q double dot plus cq q dot plus gq. And control is alpha tau dash plus beta, right? So your torque is equal to mq tau dash plus c plus g. In reality, your mq is not equal to what you are estimating. Your cq dot is not same as c hat q dot, and gq is not same as g hat q. Okay, so actual system which we get after this kind of becomes error double dot plus kb into error dot plus kp into e is not equal to 0. It rather has some uncertainty terms. Okay, what does this problem lead to? We have tracking error, we have instability. Okay, so computed torque control is powerful, but it is model dependent. Okay, okay, now let's see what are the type of uncertainties that we may have. Okay, the first uncertainty that we have is parametric uncertainty. What does this mean? Your mass is unknown, your length is unknown, your inertia is unknown, all of these. Okay. The second thing is unstructured uncertainty. Yeah. So your friction is unknown, your external disturbances are unknown, your noise is unknown. Okay, so all of these are unknown. So your equation becomes torque is mq q double dot plus c as a function of q and q dot plus gq plus dt, where dt is some disturbance term. Okay, so we come up with very non-linear methods, non-linear control methods, and let's talk about some of them. Okay, so the very first thing that we can talk about is adaptive control. So instead of assuming the model is known, we estimate the parameters online. Okay, so what do we do in this case? Instead of torque, we have now yq, q dot and q double dot into theta, where y is a regressor matrix and theta is parameter vector. Okay, where theta is basically m1, m2, m3, sorry, not m3, l1, l2, I1, I2, etc. for tooling. Okay, so your adaptive control law basically becomes this: your torque is equal to this. Okay, so let me write it. Then we defined the error in the very same way: qd minus q, desired minus actual, and then we defined filtered error, which is s is equal to e dot plus I. So after this we write the control law. Let's not go into much detail. Then we have gamma and everything coming in, but this is how we do. Okay, so here basically we estimate these parameters. Okay, and then these parameters update continuously. So even if the parameters are unknown, the system tracks the desired trajectory. So in adaptive control, the adaptive control learns the robot model while controlling it. Okay, then you have already seen in lecture Lyapunov's method. right? And what do we do here? I'm not going much deep into this, but if you remember, we choose Lyapunov function. Okay, which is given by v is equal to half into Tms plus half into theta hat into that is the transpose. Okay, it has to be a positive definite function. Okay, whereas theta tilde is theta dash minus theta, which is the error. So the key idea here is when you take the derivative, you should have v dot to be less than equal to 0 for system to be stable. Okay, if it is just v dot is less than 0, it is from Lyapunov's criteria, else we have Lassalle's theorem, which also talks about this inequality. Okay. Okay. So adaptive control guarantees stability even with unknown parameters. Okay. Now, there so adaptive control works for structured uncertainty. But what about friction, noise, or external disturbance? So we also want to do robust control. In that case, your torque is equal to computed torque plus some robust term. For example, you can have mq into tau dash plus c plus g plus some robust term. Okay, where let's say this is some signum function. Okay, so it cancels the disturbances, it ensures bounded error, causes chattering because of high frequency oscillations of time. Okay, another non-linear control method is sliding mode control. Okay, here we define a sliding surface, and then our goal is to achieve s is equal to 0, and then we define the control law, etc. There is something called reach phase, there is something called sliding phase. So reach phase is system goes to the surface, and sliding phase is system stays on the surface. All of that is there, I'm not going into much details. The idea is we want to drive error to 0. So sliding mode control ensures no robustness against uncertainties. It also has some chatting effect. It also requires some high control effort, but yeah, it is very robust. Okay. So in real robots, we never use pure methods. We combine model-based methods plus adaptive control, model-based plus robust control. So nonlinear control of robots basically evolves in 3 levels. Model-based control cancels non-linearities. Adaptive control handles unknown parameters, and robust or sliding mode control basically handles disturbances. These together form the foundation of modern robot control. All right. I hope the things are clear. So I've given you a brief recap of uh, all of these. So let's start with a few questions. Okay. Okay, so here we go. The concept of control law partitioning means that the control law has many parts. It consists of a model based part and error driven part. One part needs measurements and the other part does not need any measurement. One part is a linear controller and another part computes non-linear control method. Does anyone want to take a guess on the answer? This is a very fundamental question and extremely important. We should learn this from the first principle. Yeah, please.
No, I think D.
B and D
You're saying D
and also B.
and B. Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, you're right. Both of these are the correct answers. Very good. So, let's go by it. So, what is control law partitioning? So, when we read when we started with robot dynamics, we said we defined the robot dynamics as the following, right? Okay. Now we rearrange or partition the control law as torque is mq into tau dash alpha into tau dash plus c plus g plus f. So this is the model based part and this is the model compensation. Okay, so the control law is split into two distinct parts. Model based part basically cancels non-linearities, okay, uses robot dynamics, MCG, metrics, etc. The error driven part, or yeah, this complete thing is model part, and the error driven part is typically PD controller, which ensures tracking. Okay, so this complete thing, this complete control is from the model side, and then we have also error driven part, which comes from PID controller. So it consists of a model based part and error driven part is correct. Okay. The fourth option is one part is linear controller, another part computes non-linear model term. This is also correct because error driven part is taken care of by linear PD control and model based part is taken care of by non-linear dynamics computation. The first option is the control law has many parts. It is two-way. It does not capture the specific structure. Partitioning is not about many parts. It is about two meaningful components here. So it is partitioning is here is not arbitrary splitting. It has very specific purpose. Okay, so this is wrong. And then in option 3 we have one part needs measurement and the other part does not need any measurement. No, both the parts require measurement. Model driven parts required measurement of q and q dot, error driven parts required e and e dot. Okay, so this statement is factually wrong, hence this is also incorrect. Okay, so a control law partitioning divides the controller into a model based nonlinear compensation part and a linear error driven control part. This allows us to convert a nonlinear robot into a linear system in error space. Okay. Okay, let's move to the next question. In the expression for the nonlinear control of a robot, tau is equal to alpha tau plus beta. Alpha and beta can be thought of as a nonlinear scaling and nonlinear bias term. Alpha is obtained from the kinetic energy of the robot. Alpha is obtained from the Coriolis centripetal term in the equation of the of motion. Alpha is obtained from the gravity term. Okay, so here you need to basically understand the physical meaning of the control law partitioning. So we already know this, right? So what do alpha and beta represent here? So we already saw alpha is mq and your beta is cq dot plus gq plus fq dot. Okay, so here alpha is mass inertia matrix, right? It scales the acceleration into torque. Okay, because we see that it is always multiplied with q double dot. So it scales the acceleration into torque. Your mq into q double dot can be equal to torque if the other matrices are 0, right? So it is basically a scaling factor to acceleration to convert it into torque, right? So it is also configuration dependent, which means that it is non-linear. So alpha acts like a non-linear scaling term. Okay, now if we talk about beta here, these are Coriolis forces, gravity and friction. They act like non-linear bias or some disturbance term, because if all of these are not present, this would be true, right? But These are not true because we have another forces acting on it. So these act basically as nonlinear bias terms. Hence, this is the correct option. Okay. So alpha and beta can be thought of as a nonlinear scaling and nonlinear bias term. Alpha is definitely a scaling of mass matrix and beta is a bias. Okay. Second option is alpha is obtained from kinetic energy of the robot. So from Lagrangian mechanics that we had seen last time, what we have seen, our kinetic energy is half into q dot transpose into mass matrix into q dot. So this mass matrix comes from the kinetic energy. So alpha is equal to mq is derived from kinetic energy. So this is also correct. Third option is alpha is obtained from Coriolis centripetal term. It is incorrect because Coriolis terms are part of beta and not alpha. They come from velocity coupling and not inertia. So there is an important distinction here. Alpha is from inertia mass matrix and C matrix velocity has velocity dependent effects. So this is incorrect. Option 4 is alpha is obtained from the gravity term. Again, it is incorrect. Gravity contributes to beta. Gravity depends only on position and not inertia, right? This is also incorrect. So it has to be very clear that in control law partitioning, alpha is equal to mq, which is the mass matrix. It comes from kinetic energy and it acts as a nonlinear scaling. Where and beta is c plus g plus f. It acts as nonlinear bias or disturbance. So this separation allows us to cancel non-linearities and design a linear control. Okay. So
Ma'am,
sorry.
when we eliminate alpha and beta, so
Eliminate.
tau prime becomes a linear decoupled unit inertia system.
I did not get what you said.
My question is when we eliminate alpha and beta.
We are not eliminating alpha and beta. So let me show this to you. Yeah. So we are not eliminating. It's just that we have this robot dynamic equation. And here instead of torque, we are substituting this. When we are substituting this, C, G and F term cancel out and your torque becomes equivalent to Q double dot.
Linear decoupled unit.
What linear decoupled unit?
Tau prime.
No, tau prime is. So, okay, you want to say that tau prime now does not depend on MC, G and F?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. Because you are cancelling basically all the effects. You are doing feedback linearization. You are cancelling the effects of all the non-linear terms and you are having an equation like this. So you are including a control law such that it cancels the dynamics of the system. And this, don't say decoupled, but you can say that, yeah, this is now not dependent on all of those matrices. Okay. Okay, let's move to the next question. So, in the expression for the nonlinear, and just hold on. In the expression for the nonlinear control of a robot, tau is equal to alpha tau dash plus beta. The term tau dash is the torque applied at the at the robot actuators, is the linear PID part of the control law, is the equivalent torque applied to a linear decoupled unit inertia system, is torque due to friction at the joints. Okay, this is a very conceptual question. So what does this tau dash represent is the question. We saw already that tau dash becomes q double dot when we apply the control law. So this means tau dash is not actual torque. It is the input to the transformed system. What system? After cancellation, your system becomes this. It is not the original torque which was tau that we were supplying, because this torque was alpha tau dash plus beta, right? And it comprised of all the matrices. But tau dash is a torque that we are not supplying. Okay, it is just an input to the transformed system. Okay, this is linear unit inertia system. Okay, so the option that we have is, it is the linear PID part of the control law. Yes, because your this tau dash is basically, when we do QD minus Q dot, what do we get? We write a control law as the following. So this is a linear control law, usually PD or PID. Okay. The third option is, it is the equivalent torque applied to linear decoupled unit inertia system. Because after cancellation, the system behaves like this. So tau dash acts like an input torque to a simple system. Okay, so this is also correct. Now let's see first option. It is a torque applied at a robot actuators. No, actual actuator torque is tau. Okay, it is not tau dash. Tau dash is only an intermediate control signal. Tau dash is not physically applied. Instead, tau is applied. The dynamics cancel out, and tau dash is just an input torque to the simple system. Okay. The other option is, it is the torque due to friction at the joints. Friction is a part of beta C plus G plus F, and it is not a part of tau dash. So anyway, it is wrong. So tau dash here is a virtual control input applied to an equivalent linear system obtained after cancelling non-linearities. It is linear control part, PD or PID, and it is the input to unit inertia system. So you can think of it like this. There is an original robot. It is a complicated nonlinear system. After cancellation, it becomes a simple system. Tau dash controls that simple system. Okay. So tau is the real torque and tau dash is the virtual control input. Okay. Let's move to the fourth question. The main reason why ideal performance is not possible in a computed torque control scheme is, okay, so in ideal computed torque assumes everything, and then we get q double dot is equal to tau dash. So this gives perfect cancellation of non-linearities, linear decoupled system, and perfect tracking. But this requires M, C, G and F matrices to be exactly known. But in practice, your matrix that you know is not equal to the actual matrix that is there, neither in terms of C, neither in terms of G. So cancellation is not exact. If cancellation is not exact, then what happens? Your M minus M hat Q double dot plus C minus C hat plus G minus G hat is not equal to 0. This creates residual non-linearities, and then we have tracking error. Okay. So the options that we have here are, the first option is, the main reason why ideal performance is not possible in CTC scheme is, it is due to lack of knowledge of parameters. Exact cancellation is not possible. This is the fundamental reason. Computed torque control works perfectly only if the model is exact, which is never true in practice. Okay, therefore we have tracking error. The other option is due to lack of computing resources. No, modern processors are fast enough. This is not the main limitation. Even with infinite computation, model mismatch still exists. So this is not an issue. Third option is, time required to compute the terms in the equation of motion is really large. Partially true, but not the main reason. Computation delay exists, but not it is not a fundamental issue that if this is solved, the model, the CTC would be ideal. No. This is also incorrect. Linear PID part is not suitable. The linear part is actually very effective. Once the system is linearized, PD works perfectly. Problem is not the controller, problem is model accuracy. So the main limitation of CTC is model uncertainty. Since robot parameters are never exactly known, perfect cancellation of non-linearities is not possible, and hence the ideal performance cannot be achieved. So no exact model means no exact cancellation. Okay. So for this problem exactly we need adaptive control to estimate the parameters and robust control to handle the uncertainties. All right. Let's move to question 5. A computed torque control scheme works best when no model is used. Works better than a PID scheme as long as any estimate of the mass matrix is used. Works better than a PID scheme as long as the estimated mass matrix is invertible. Never performs better than a PID control scheme. So this is a subtle question, I think. It checks whether you understand CTC and how does it actually give improvement over PID. Okay. So again, in computed torque control, if the model is not exact, Q double dot would be equal to tau dash plus some error terms, right? So the system is approximately linearized. Even with imperfect model, non-linear effects are partially cancelled, right? Even if we have this issue arising there, but still the effects of non-linearity are cancelled. So system behaves closer to linear. Performance improves over pure PID. So let's talk about the third option first. It works better than a PID scheme as long as the estimated mass matrix is invertible. This is correct. Why? Because computed torque requires this MCG matrix, etc. So to compute tau dash, okay, so to compute this tau dash, we will need to invert our mass matrix. Okay, so if mass matrix is invertible, control law is valid. If the parameters are slightly wrong, performance is still better than PID. So even an approximate model improves performance as long as the mass matrix is usable. When it is usable, when it is invertible. Okay, so this option is correct. The first option is it works best when no model is used. It is completely incorrect because that is just pure PD or PID control, no cancellation of nonlinearities, etc. So it is opposite of computed torque control philosophy. So this is wrong. Works better than PID as long as any estimate of the mass matrix is used. No, not any estimate works. It must be physically meaningful. It must be invertible. If the matrix is singular, control law breaks. So this is wrong. The fourth option is it never performs better than PID. So this is completely incorrect. Computed torque has lower error, it has smoother torque, and it offers better tracking. So this is also incorrect. So computed torque control improves performance over PID even with model errors, provided the estimated mass matrix is valid and invertible. All right. So yeah, having an approximate model is better than no model any day. Okay. So even with 10% parameter error, computed torque still outperforms PID. This is seen in simulation results as well. You might have seen in the lecture. Okay. Now, as demonstrated in the simulations of the planar 2R robot in the lecture, the torques required for a fast motion are same as for a slow motion. Torques required for a fast motion is smaller when a model-based controller is used. Tracking error is lower when a model-based controller is used. And tracking error is least when the model is known exactly. Okay. So if you remember, there are two scenarios, fast motion and slow motion. Controllers are compared, PD controller feed forward with the exact model and model based with errors, right? So the observations that we had from there are fast motion leads to large non-linear effects. Larger torque is required, larger errors are there, especially with PD. So torques are not same for fast and slow motion. Okay. The second observation that we had was for model-based controller that it cancels the nonlinear terms, produces smoother torque and requires less torque variation. It improves the tracking, right? And for exact model, what we had seen that it is the best possible tracking and almost we have zero error. So the second option which says that torque required for a fast motion is smaller when a model-based controller is used is correct because nonlinear terms are compensated here and control effort becomes more efficient. Okay. Third option is tracking error is lower when a model-based controller is used. This is also correct because non-linearities are cancelled and the system behaves linearly. The fourth option is tracking error is least when the model is non-exactly. This is also true because then we have perfect cancellation, ideal linear system and errors theoretically zero. And then in the first option we have torques required for a fast motion are same as that for a slow motion. No. So huge difference is there due to inertia, Coriolis effect, etc. They all are dynamics. So simulation results clearly show that model-based control reduces torque and improves tracking. Exact model gives best performance and fast motions require higher torque due to nonlinear dynamics. Okay. Okay. So if the if there is PD control being used, then fast motion increases the error. Why? Because nonlinear terms grow with velocity, PD cannot compensate. Okay. I hope this question is clear. Let's move to the next question. For the experiments done on a 5 degree of freedom robot, which is shown in the lecture, as compared to PD control, the model-based controller performs better. For first joint, since the dynamic effects are least for the first joint. For the first joint, since the dynamic effects are most in the first joint. For the first joint, since the first joint moves the least, equally well for the first three joints. Okay. So in the 5 DOF robot experiment, model-based control performs better. So if you recall the experiment, if you can refer to the slides, the maximum error in joint 1 reduced significantly. It was from 5 degree to 2 degree error. Improvement in joint 2 as well, almost no difference in joint 4 and 5. Okay, so model-based control helps most where nonlinear dynamic effects are strongest. Okay, so which joint has maximum dynamic effect is the question. So joint 1, which is the base joint, right? Because it carries the entire robot. Joint 1 supports link 1, link 2, all downstream links. So inertia seen by joint 1 is maximum. Apart from this, it also has strong Coriolis and coupling effect. Motion of all the joints affect joint 1. There are large non-linear interactions. Okay. Third reason is gravity also affects this the largest. Entire arm weight acts through base. So nonlinear dynamics are strongest at joint 1. Model-based control gives maximum improvement there. Okay. So here in the second option we have for the first joint, since the dynamic effects are most in the first joint. The other options are for the first joint, since the dynamic effects are least for the first joint. This is completely wrong because opposite it is true. Joint 1 has maximum dynamic effects. Okay. In option 3 we have for the first joint, since the first joint moves the least. Movement magnitude is not the key factor. Dynamics depend on inertia, coupling, load, all of them. Okay. And then we have it is equally well for all the three joints. No. Improvement is not uniform. Much larger improvement in joint 1. So this is also incorrect. So model-based control provides maximum benefit when the nonlinear dynamics are strongest. In a robot, this is typically the base joint which carries the entire structure. So joint 1 is lifting the whole robot. It has far more complex dynamics as compared to joint 5, which is a small link and it is almost linear. Okay, so the more closer to base you are, you have more dynamics, more benefit you get from model based control. All right. Okay, let's move to the next question. A serial manipulator undergoing constrained motion is best controlled using joint space formulation, is best controlled using a Cartesian space formulation, can apply a desired force and follow a desired trajectory in the same direction, cannot apply a desired force and follow a desired trajectory in the same direction. Okay, this is very important for understanding why Cartesian control and hybrid control are used. Okay, so for example, there is a robot sliding on a surface. What is a constrained motion? First of all, a serial manipulator undergoing constrained motion, what does that mean? It means that, let's say, a robot is sliding on the surface and robot is also maintaining the contacts, so it is working in two directions. Okay, so the constraint is defined in Cartesian space XYZ and not in terms of joints, right? Because Cartesian constraint is how we are allowed to move in XYZ. You cannot define it in terms of joint. Okay, so if we talk about joint space versus Cartesian space, the joint space control works with Q. Constraint becomes complicated, right? And it is hard to enforce and not practical. So we go with Cartesian space control. It works directly with XYZ. The constraint is simple, that f x y z has to be equal to 0, and it is much easier and much natural. Okay, so is best controlled using a Cartesian space formulation is correct. Constraints are naturally defined in Cartesian space, so control should also be designed in Cartesian space. Okay, then force versus velocity thing is very important. There is a fundamental duality principle that you cannot control force and position in the same direction. Why? Because we can also see this from power is equal to force into velocity. Right. If both are independently controlled, there is a conflict. For example, if the grinding goes on, the normal direction has a control force and tangential direction controls the motion. Okay. So the fourth option, it cannot apply a desired force and follow a desired trajectory in the same direction, is correct. The other options that we have are, is best controlled using joint space formulation? No. Constraint becomes complicated in joint space and it is not practical, hence this is incorrect. The other option is it can apply a desired force and follow a desired trajectory in the same direction. No, it violates the duality principle and it is physically impossible. So in constrained motion, Cartesian control is preferred because constraints are defined in task space. Force and position cannot be controlled simultaneously in the same direction. This leads to hybrid force position control. Okay, you can either push on a wall or you can move freely across the surface of the wall, but you cannot do both of them in the same direction. All right, so force perpendicular to motion. Okay, I hope it is clear. If it is, then we'll move to the next question. Force control in robot deals with the gripping force and end effector applies on the grasp object. Force applied tangent to the trajectory followed by the end effector. Force applied perpendicular to the direction of motion by the end effector. Force torque applied at the joint by an actuator. Okay, so the fundamental idea, force control in a robot deals with, or when the robot is in contact with the environment, we want to control force, not position in that direction. Right? Force is controlled in the perpendicular direction, motion is controlled in the tangential direction. Okay, so the correct option here is force applied perpendicular to the direction of motion by the end effector. Force control acts in the direction when motion is constrained, typically perpendicular to the surface. The first option is gripping force on an object. So that's grasping, not general force control in manipulation task. Hence, this is incorrect. Force tangent to trajectory. Tangential direction means motion control and it is not force control. So it is wrong. Fourth option is force or torque applied at the joint by an actuator. This is actuator level control. Force control is defined at end effector level. Okay, so this is also incorrect. So force control deals with controlling interaction forces typically in the direction perpendicular to the motion which is normal to the surface. Alright. Okay. So this is the last question that we are taking today. The just a second. Here, natural control constraints in a task deals with forces and torques acting on the end effector when it is moving in the free space. Forces and torques acting on the end effector in contact with the environment which cannot be controlled. Forces and torques acting on the end effector in contact with the environment which can be controlled. Force position and orientation of the end effector which can be controlled. So what are natural constraints? When the robot is in contact with the environment, some variables are automatically constrained by physics, right? Robot cannot go inside the wall. It is position constrained. Contact force depends on environment and it is not freely controllable. So natural constraints are things that you cannot control. Okay, so the option 2 that we have here is forces and torques acting on the end effector in contact with the environment which cannot be controlled. This is correct because when in contact, environment dictates the reaction forces and contact behavior. These are not independently controllable. But if we talk about option A, forces and torques acting on the end effector when it is moving in free space. If there is no contact, there is no constraint. Okay, so this is incorrect. Third option is forces and torques acting on the end effector in contact with the environment which can be controlled. This is incorrect because this is artificial constraint and it is not natural. Okay. The fourth option is position orientation of the end effector which can be controlled. Again, controllable variables are the artificial constraints. So natural constraints arise from interaction with the environment and represent variables that cannot be controlled independently. So when robot touches some environment, there are some things that you can control. There are some things that physics controls for you. Okay? So, if something is natural, you cannot control. If it is artificial constraint, you can definitely control it. Alright? So, this was all about today's lecture. If you have any questions, then we can take it. And so we'll meet for 2 more weeks. I'm not going to take an extra class. So it would be just last 2 weeks that we'll be doing in the next 2 weeks, and I hope you clarify all your doubts before the exams. I hope all of these are helping you in solving your assignments. So in the next class, which is scheduled to be next week Monday, we are going to study about wheeled mobile robots, right? WMRs, on flat terrain, on uneven terrain, and what are the kinematics and dynamics of WMR on uneven terrain, etc. All of these we are going to study. So that would be next week, which would be week 11. And then we are going to see in the last week over constraint mechanism and deployable structures. That would be just, I think, overview and briefing. So we'll do that. So next week, I hope, I know who are present in the lecture, you guys are already watching the lectures and you're coming. Apart from this, I'm just putting it on record here because I'm going to upload it again on YouTube as well. So I'm just saying that everyone should be familiar by now with the contents that we have discussed so far. If you haven't, then please go through all the lectures, go through the tutorial lectures that I have conducted, and brush yourself up. And next week we have WMRs coming in, so I request everyone to kindly go through the lecture before the next class, clarify all your doubts that you have for the entire lecture in the next 2 weeks, because that is the last number of 2 times that we're meeting. So please clarify all your doubts, please study, please solve all the questions, please solve your assignments carefully. That would help you boost the confidence. Don't use chat gpt, don't use AI generated text, answers are wrong many times. You might not learn everything correctly, so I don't know, it is somewhat limited, and there is a disclaimer that it might not always give the correct result. That is even true. So the thing is, you should understand all the contents properly, so please do it. And then we can go with WMRs in the next lecture on next Monday at the same time. If you have any questions, I can take up Arnab and Manas, else we can close the
Ma'am,
session.
one question
Yeah.
from assignment 5, you already given the solution. The pointing accuracy required in milliradian for a mirror size of 1 meter and 1 meter located at a distance of 500 meter from the receiver size 2 meter into 2 meter is a concentrated solar power tower system for harvesting solar energy. What is the pointed accuracy? Your
Uh,
solution answer is 1 milliradian.
can you do one thing? Can you share this question on the discussion forum, and then I can answer over there?
Okay, ma'am, time.
Would it be possible for you? I mean, can you take the screenshot of the question and post it there?
Yes, madam. I will try.
Okay, just post it over there. I'll look at it in a while, and I'll tell you what are the things that have to be used there, because here I think the communication is not so clear, and I'm not able to hear the voice clearly. But as far as I understand, it is from deployment of these panels question. So please drop it there. I think I'll answer it there itself.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so I think we are done with today's lecture. See you next Monday at the same time. Bye.
Okay, ma'am.
Bye. Good night.